Hello, Brobs. We're back with The Mother in History. Marguerite Oswald, the mother of the man who killed Kennedy by Gene Stafford. A rendering which I have botched from mostly beginning to finish, but I have excuses. I had a very busy 2 weeks, and I want to finish it before next week, which is going to be even busier. The Epilogue. I left Dallas the next day in a preposterous storm. 5 times as rip-roaring as the one the day before, even for Baron von Munchausen. It was laid on too thick. The rain, much wetter than any other I had ever been soaked by, came down hell-bent for election, and the lightning was a stretch on the imagination. My plane was 2 hours late getting in from El Paso, and then for another hour. After it did get in, it sat on the field unopened. Nobody cares. One of the men at the gate told me they can't open the doors. If they did, those passengers would get blown right back to the border. He laughed as he said it, with regional pride. We were finally allowed to board, escorted by men in nor'westers and hip boots, carrying bumbershoot the size of umbrella trees. One of these turned inside out, and the poor fellow who had been handling it was almost lifted off his feet. I would not have been surprised if he'd been swept aloft and had vanished from view, as Sinbad was carried away from the Valley of Diamonds by the Rock. I thought of a joke one of my drivers had told me, one of her drivers. A Texan visiting Niagara Falls was asked if there was anything like that in the Lone Star State, and he replied, "No, but we've got a plumber in Houston that can fix it." Just about anything can happen in Texas. While I was in Dallas, I heard of a curriculum for pre-school children that included a course in remedial creeping and crawling. Once we were off the ground, the commotion died down, and as Texas receded, the firmament grew pure. My flight to New York was as smooth as sleep. But no matter how gentle an airplane ride is, no matter how consolingly cloudless the Empyrean, no matter how reassuring the look of the crew, when I am in the sky, I meditate on life and death. And now, in minute particular, I relive the day in 1963 when the random element in the universe went hog wild. Within half an hour of the final awful bulletin from Parkland Memorial Hospital, New York City was as still as a ghost town. The streets were all but deserted. Traffic was nearly at a standstill. I tried without success to telephone my husband at the New Yorker office. All the telephone lines were jammed, as sometimes they are in a great blizzard. My husband was ill and had been for a long time, and his illness had generated a deep depression. But in the last couple of weeks, he had been sanguine and nearly himself again, and we had resumed the life we'd lived before of having friends in to dinner or going out to his favorite restaurants. The night before, we had made a pub crawl to our familiar saloons, to Bleak's and P.J. Moriarty's and Tim Costello's, and we had a good time tonight. Friday, we planned to go to a fight at the Garden. I can't remember who was fighting that night, but it seems to me it may have been Dick Tiger. In any case, it was someone Joe thought I had talent. Everything, of course, was canceled. I recall being shocked. I really don't know why when I heard that some people went ahead and had the dinner parties they'd planned. It was late in the afternoon when Joe got through to me, and his voice was more despairing than it had been at any other time since he'd been sick. I think I had counted on him to tell me that the news I'd heard on the radio wasn't true, that it was some monstrous hoax, and that a whole world of possibilities still lay open to Kennedy. None of us could believe it. I slept very poorly that night, waking often to the knowledge that something dreadful had happened, and not being able at first to remember what it was, and then remembering. Twice during the night I went into Joe's room, where he was sleeping lightly too, but he could not tell me that I had only been having a nightmare of stupendous violation. For days, we all went about our business like somnambulists. After Joe died, a few weeks later, as I was clearing out his office, I got rid of pounds and pounds of newspapers that he was using in writing his wayward press piece. And the headline freshly flabbergasted me, and my rage came back. Suddenly, death was larger than life, and suddenly it was terrifyingly twice as natural. And that's the end of that. Should I read the appendix now? probably won't. I will read it in the next one. Goodbye, Robs. Goodbye.